All right, my friends, hello. How are you doing? So good to have you on another Friday for another Creative Checkup Live. If you're new to God and Gigs, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. If you're watching on replay, if you're watching live, whenever you're watching, thank you for giving us a moment, some time to share from our creative community. If you're new to our platform, to our community, we're here to help you to transform your creative life from the inside out by applying timeless spiritual principles to temporary creative problems. And we do this once a week on Fridays to help you solve one of those temporary creative problems. So if you're watching live, let me know if you are watching. If you are over on Instagram, we are sharing from Instagram as well. Let me see if I can grab that video real quick and see if you can see where you guys are. Oh, wait, we have not gone live from Instagram. That would be why no one is going to watch us from Instagram. So now we are. Thank God I checked, or else I would have been sitting here talking to myself, or at least talking to only Instagram, to Facebook and YouTube, and not the Instagram. All right, there we go. Now we're live on Instagram as well. Okay, very cool. All right, so as I mentioned, if you can hear me okay, and more importantly, just as importantly, so that we can share this with other people who are watching, even if you're watching on replay, commenting, liking, sharing. This is all about people like you who need information like this, okay, so they can become better creators from the inside out. So you help us out when you share. We're up to about, I believe, 971, 74, something like that, subscribers on YouTube, which is really cool. That means more people are buying in. They're saying, hey, maybe I'm not alone. Maybe I'm not the only creative who loves God, but also creates outside of the church and just wants to do this better. Maybe you're thinking, oh, I was the only one that was kind of feeling insecure about my creative life because I just felt like I didn't know what to do and I didn't know if God called me to this. Am I supposed to be doing this? If you're not the only one, well, then share this so that somebody else will realize they're not the only one. Okay, we got some friends coming in on Instagram as well, but I always like to jump right into the topic. So great to see you, Gerald Cabral. Oh my gosh, my brother, good to see you, man. Zakia Media House as well over here on Instagram. So cool to see our friends joining us. And if you're joining us in a Facebook group, remember you have to tell StreamYard that it's okay for you to share your name. There's a particular link that you can just find, just click that and then share that it's okay for you to have your name pop up. But when you guys comment on YouTube, I can actually share this and open it up and put a little byline on the bottom of this screen so everybody can read your comments, which is also really cool. But today we're talking about full-time jobs versus your creative side hustle. So what has been very apparent to me is that this, I almost said myth, but yeah, it's kind of a myth. This ideal of the full time artist is a little bit off. The full time artist being the person that earns all their income strictly from their creative work. The idea that if you are a real artist, all you do is your art. If you're a real musician, all you do is music. If you're a real playwright, if you're a real writer, all you do is write books. All you do is blank. And that somehow achieving this pinnacle of all of your income coming strictly from your art somehow makes you more legit, more real, because now, oh well, because yeah, because you're an artist and you only do art for your income, that must prove you're a real artist, right? But as you're probably guessing, and anybody else in here has ever heard that before, that being a real artist means you have to earn all your income as an artist. Have you ever felt or heard or almost even bought into that? I'm going to make a little adjustment here real quick because I don't think I need this little setting. It's kind of weirding me out a little. Here we go. Cool. That should help. All right, there we go. So if you felt that way, just put a 1 in the chat, put a yes in the chat. If you've ever felt like being more full-time in your art and your income being synonymous, right? So getting most of your income from your art somehow makes you more legit. I'd love to see what you guys think about that. Before I jump into the questions and the comments I have, I made some quick notes because I feel like I can address this, because if you have followed my story, you know I've been a full-time musician. You know I've been a full-time minister. You know I've been a full-time educator. And now I basically call myself a part-time everything. I really don't feel like I can specifically in my own creative life point to a certain thing and say, here is the thing that makes my income and makes my job legit. Like, I don't know. I don't know what that is anymore. Maybe you do. And maybe you can share it in the comments that you know why your specific creative income should come from a certain source, your full-time job or your creative life. And if you have figured out how to balance those things out, if you figured out that, oh yeah, I'm okay having my 9 to 5 because I know I'm going to be earning this over here from my art, from my music career. I know what's coming from my full-time job. I don't feel any tension between the two. Then that's awesome. Please share it in the chat. But for most of us, I see some other people joining us on Instagram. Please let us know what you think, because I can see your comments. I can't post your comments online like I can with Facebook and YouTube. But if you're watching on Instagram, I can still see your comments, okay? So you can respond and talk. I just can't pull it up online on the screen. So if you have found a balance, number one, if you are an artist that has a full-time job, please share that in the chat. You don't have to share a specific job, but just share, hey, are you a full-time, whatever, doctor, lawyer, firefighter, nurse, teacher, whatever you do, and then you have your creative side hustle? Because if that's you, number one, this is for you. And then number two, if you have a full-time job as something else, and your creative side hustle has been getting kind of like lost in the sauce, this is also for you. Because like I said, the vast majority of us in this creative community in God and Gigs, whether it be 360, our membership, whether it be our Facebook group, whether it be the podcast listeners, I'm going to do a survey on this probably soon, but I'm pretty sure that it's going to be a 70 to 60, 70%, 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10, that are not full-time artists in terms of like your income is not specifically from your creative work, your side hustle. And I'm calling it side hustle, by the way, because a lot of people call it side hustle. I don't even really like the term side hustle, but when I did my research and I was looking, okay, what are people searching for? They search for side hustle. So we're calling it side hustles, even though it's probably not your side hustle. You probably consider it a part of your career. Let's see what we're saying over here on Instagram. Let me see. Musician here with a full-time job, but musically definitely pays more so far. That's a blessing, C Keys TV. That's a blessing, man. That's not common. And I know of where you have a full-time job, but your musician income pays more. That's great. Gerald says, as you know, I'm a commercial director for a company and a full-time musician as well. Struggling to find the bigger balance as I need more music though. All right, Gerald is in a long time. What man, Gerald goes back. We go back way too far to even mention because it makes me feel old thinking about our kids and how they've all grown up. But Gerald, I know you're 100% a musician, 100% qualified to call yourself full-time musician. And yet you also have this other position, which I've seen for years that you just kind of like just roll with it. And I don't even see you in that commercial space that much. But clearly you're gifted and you're a director and you've risen in the ranks. And so those two things are like not, I don't know. You say you're struggling to find balance. So that's what we're going to try to do today. So I don't like to talk about myself in these things, but I'm going to talk about myself a little bit just because I am also a representation of that. What is full-time? Where does your income really come from? Is it okay to say, hey, my 9 to 5 gets this much attention and should get this much attention, and yet I still consider myself a full-time artist? And what does that even mean? What does full-time even mean? You know what? Let's start there. I wasn't going to go here, everybody, but I'm going to start here. What is even the definition of full-time? Because before we start discussing what's a full-time artist, whether you should be a full-time artist, whether it should be a full-time, whatever, full-time job, 9 to 5. Let's first define full-time. Are we, and tell me in the chat, is full-time 40 hours a week? Does that define a full-time job? 40 hours a week. Because I can tell you right now, number one, most of us, especially in this economy in the United States, we are not doing full-time as a 40-hour job. That's just not sustainable, like in terms of not making enough. Like 40 hours is not doing it in any profession, pretty much. So no matter what, even if your income is higher, your higher cost of living means now you got to do more. And so that 40 hours is, so I don't even know if we can define 40 hours a week as full time, which then breaks that whole immediately. How do we argue your 9 to 5 or whatever we call it should be the focus and be called your full-time job if the time is not even really, honestly, that linear anymore? It's not just, oh, well, I work from this to this. So there's so many layers of this that I don't think already that we can simply say, oh, well, do this for your full-time job and do this for your creative side hustle. Why? Because we are already agreeing that these things don't really blend or match. They don't, or I should say, they're not cut and dry. They're not black and white. Over here on Instagram, let's see what you guys are saying. Okay. Oh, good to see you, Mom. My mom is here. Rita Paul. Hello, Mom. This is very nerve-wracking when your mom is on, but I'm so glad to see her because she also knows, of course, better than anyone, my story about trying to get this whole balance together. Also, Humble MJ, good to see you. Okay, so Gerald says, I don't consider full-time musician 40 hours a week because you can be a full-time musician and work under 40 hours a week, just like you could work way over 40 hours a week. Yeah. I think the best way to define full-time is to base it on your level of commitment to your job craft. Thank you. That's the line I wanted. Thank you, Gerald. Specifically saying the focus. I'm so glad you led me there. I didn't have to say it because you said it. By the way, if you're watching this and I see Instagram numbers are going up a little bit, if you think this would bless someone, one of your friends that's full-time musician or full-time creative or full-time job, whatever, and they're like, hey, I've been stressing, please send this to them. This is actually in response to a 360 question that we had that we discussed in our 360 Mastermind membership. By the way, let me quickly pull that up because I don't want to forget about these guys. I want you to see who we're talking about. When I say 360, I'm talking about this membership of our Mastermind members, which are in 360 Gold, and then our 360 guests. All this is available. You can find all this out at godandgeeks.com/gold. You can find out about our Gold program. And join that. That's where people have invested 360 guests, or where people bought one time, they bought one product, and then they're in our forums, but they may not be getting live coaching. So we brought up this conversation in 360 Gold in our mastermind call on Monday. And I think it was Charmaine, and I think it was also Pamela was with us. And we were talking about, okay, well, you know, we have these corporate jobs. We have these full-time corporate jobs, or maybe we're starting our side hustles, but they're not quite there yet, so they don't pay the income. But they need just as much love. These creative jobs need love. They need our attention. They need our focus. So how in the world do we find the time to focus on it when, like Gerald said, it's sometimes more than 40 hours a week that we spend at our full-time jobs? I personally, as I was about to mention my own story, I currently work at my church on staff. So I help produce podcasts. I also help run the worship band. That does, again, bleed into all the other things I do. But when I'm working at my church, I need to be focused in the office. And it's very hard, trust me, because there's constantly this noise and this feeling of I'm missing something. There's something I need to work on for my songs. There's a gig I need to work on. There's something else. There's somebody texting me about this gig and that gig. There's somebody texting me about this other podcast that's not this related. And so there's constantly this struggle between what's running in my head, which is all the things with my creative life, and then my job, which requires the full focus. So as you're seeing here again, these members of 360 Gold, they have committed, and some of them are established creative experts, which is that means they are full-time. Oh, I'll talk about Victory Lyric in a second, but Victory Lyric is our newest one. She's a great example of this. Victory, matter of fact, I'm going to pull her up right now. Victory Lyric is our newest established creative expert. She is also a TV host. She was on the Food Network. She actually got to serve cupcakes and create cakes for Julia Child, which is insane. Like at 22 years old, she was in our latest podcast episode 293, which is called Revive Your Artistry. Okay, so go check that out. Episode 293, godandgeeks.com/293. But you know what Victory's full-time job is? She raises Great Dane puppies. She's a breeder. She's a dog breeder, but yet at the same time, she's also a professional chef, a professional. She's been at the top levels of, like I said, on the Food Network, Fox, CNN, all these other shows. And now she's a worship pastor and a TV host and a YouTuber. So she's creating all this stuff. And yet her full-time is raising puppies and raising these cool Great Danes. Like, that's what I'm talking about when I say, how do you decide which one gets your focus? Because if she's able to do this, and she's able to run businesses and run corporate things and also be able to be in this world of dog breeding, and yet at the same time, she's 100% a creative and runs a podcast for creatives just like God and Gigs. Like, how can we do the same thing and make sure we balance that out? That's our goal today. All right, let me jump over to Instagram. Okay, good to see you, Imperial Ride. So I'm going to get into my slides, not slides, but just my points now. Go ahead and pull that. Sorry, I disappeared for a second. Okay, so let me grab these banners here so you can see which points I'm making. And so here's the first thing I want to kind of share with you when it comes to being able to balance your creative side hustle with your full-time job. And we just said it. Your full-time job isn't necessarily the number of hours. Your creative side hustle, your creative career is not necessarily the number of hours that you spend during a week. That does not determine what's full-time. What we're deciding is that what really determines your full-time is your focus. So let's first establish this together, everyone. Each one of these careers, these things, your full-time job, your 9 to 5, your traditional job, your creative career, each one deserves your focus. And this might be both kind of a stretch and a conflict in both respects. You might say, well, doesn't my full-time job deserve more focus because it's bringing in more income? Or you might say, doesn't my passion project, my creative life, my art, doesn't that deserve more focus? Because that's really where my heart is, and that's honestly where I want to lead to. I want to do this full time in terms of my art. So shouldn't that get more focus? Well, I'm here to help you to see this as each one deserves the equal amount of focus. Why? Because focus is 100%. Focus is 100%. If you are trying to split your focus, you're not focused. Let me do an example right here. I'm going to try this. I didn't even know I was going to do this. I'm going to try to do it and see if I mess this up. If I mess this up, then forgive me. But I'm going to see if I can actually do half focus on my camera right now. So let me see. I got this, got ultra wide resolution. 24. So yeah, what if I did this? If I did this and I say, okay, I'm just going to go to half the focus. I may mess up my camera right now, y'all. So if I don't come back and I mess this up, then you understand. I don't know what's about to happen. We'll see what's going to happen. What happened there? Did y'all see anything? Okay, so yeah, okay, I see it. So that's like 30% focus. Are y'all seeing me still? Did I disappear? Let me pull up Instagram again and make sure I didn't do this. Okay. Manuel, good to see you, brother. But this is half focus. Is it really? So do you guys see my point? I thought that would be interesting, but this is the point. Half focus is no focus. 50% focus is no focus. This is not focus. I'm looking at myself and I look like a blurry kind of, I can kind of see behind me. I don't know. It looks very strange. I look like a robot, like I'm swimming through fog or something. I don't know what's going on, but I did that on purpose. So just know that if you're watching right now, you just came in, you're like, this guy is got the worst camera in the world. So there's no such thing as half focus is my point. Let's get out of this because this is making me nervous. Like I won't be able to switch it back. There's no such thing as half focus. You can only be 100% focused or else you're not. Let's make sure I come back. Did I come back? All right, thank God, because I was a little nervous. I messed it all up. So each one of your segments of your life, and by the way, if you're listening to this, I will have to probably cut this out of the podcast because that won't make any sense to anybody that's just listening. But you have to realize that 100% focus is required to be focused at all. And so when you are at your full-time position, it deserves your 100% focus. Now, I am guilty as much as anyone of sliding over to Instagram, sliding over to Gmail, sliding over and trying to multitask. But I think we've all probably heard the stories and read the research by now that says multitasking is not actually multitasking. You're not doing more than that one task at the same time. You're actually task switching. But there's no such thing as multitask. You are only able to do one thing at one time. So when you are at your full-time position, whatever that is, it deserves your full-time focus. But conversely, when you are at your creative side hustle, it deserves your full-time focus. So you cannot then say, well, I'm just going to do this kind of like on the side and play and practice a little bit and just, it's not really serious and it's just my little thing. I used to say that all the time and my wife would get on me so much and other people too. It's just your little thing. Stop saying that. It's not little. And they were right. Just creating it little, being little and dumbing it down and saying, oh, it's just a little thing. I'm not going to really focus on it. It's impossible to say that it's then a focus or even like something you're doing. No, the Bible is very clear about whatsoever you do in word or deed, eat or drink, I think it's Colossians. Do it all in the name of the Lord Jesus to the glory of God, which means doing it with all your might, all your soul, doing it to your best of your ability. So your creative side hustle deserves 100% focus whenever you're able to do it. Now, maybe that does mean you have to wake up at 5 in the morning to do it. Maybe that does mean that you have to, push yourself a little bit to get that practice time in at 7. Maybe that does mean like spending weekends all day at rehearsals when you got your work day coming up on Monday. Does require a lot more energy and a lot more focus for you. But it's worth it and it deserves it. Your creative focus shouldn't be at the detriment of your full-time life, and your full-time life should not be at the detriment of your full-time creative life. Both of those have to be there. Khadija, good to see you, my friend. Awesome to see you joining us over here on the God and Gigs side. She's an amazing singer, and so we're going to be hopefully working together on some other stuff. But I love to see you over here on God and Gigs, so this is where all the lifestyle decisions we make our decisions. All right, so we made that determination. If you're with me, tracking with me, thank you, Gerald, for those kind words. I wish I could put your stuff up here on Instagram. If you are with me, please say yes. Let me just see in the chat if you guys are with me. If you guys are feeling and understanding what I'm saying about focus before I move ahead. that each one, your creative life deserves full-time focus, and your full-time job deserves full-time focus, because neither one of them is less deserving or doesn't need to be focused on. You guys are with me? Okay, I hope that means yes, because I'm looking. I see Radical Shah just joined us. Thank you so much for joining us. But I'm going to go ahead to the next point, which is kind of like basically other side of the same coin, which I just said. Seeing your full-time position, in my position currently, I've been really focusing on trying to make sure that I don't make it a competitive issue between when I'm thinking about being a musician and when I'm thinking about focusing as a worship leader or podcaster or any of these other things. I very, very much subscribe to Jeff Goins. One of the books I still recommend. You can find this at godofgigs.com/books. All the books we recommend. And he was very clear that your full-time position actually can be the patron of your creative life. So if you've got a full-time job, basically that full-time job becomes the funding source for your creative hustle in many ways. We can talk about separating business and personal and all that kind of stuff. It's not an economics talk today. But it's very clear that some of the reasons that you can have a creative side hustle is because you have a full-time job. Many people kind of, I'm sure people who are looking for jobs are wishing they had that income to kind of settle things down. Again, this kind of comes to our 360 Gold membership, where we've had some friends who did the creative side hustle thing for a second, wasn't really producing the income they needed. They went back to work. There's no shame in that. As a matter of fact, it's wisdom, because now when you get home and that full-time income is helping you pay the bills, the worry drops for the creative side hustle to just be whatever you want it to be. So there is wisdom in keeping that full-time position. We've said it, and we had this also discussion with Rachel Scott in Taking the 5 Leaps, another book we recommend, Taking the 5 Leaps by Rachel G. Scott. Check her out. She's been on the podcast as well. She talks about this, how there are different kinds of leaps. There's the builder's leap. The builder's leap is where you're going to build something. If I remember this correctly, I got to make sure I read the book again. But the builder's leap is where you take a leap of faith, build something, but then you go back. I think she takes it from Nehemiah. Nehemiah left to build, right? His full-time position was a cupbearer for the king. He asked for permission to go leave, do his side hustle of building back the walls of Jerusalem. But then he goes back. He goes back to what his full-time position was. So it's compatible. His position in the king's court made his side hustle of serving God and serving his people possible, because all of the resources he used came from the king. This is a huge point that I didn't even realize we were going to stumble into. I appreciate y'all. Let me get over here. And if you're watching on YouTube, or by the way, YouTube or Facebook, please let us know. If you're not able to comment real fast, at least do a like or something so we can make sure that we are interacting with you, focusing on you as well over here on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube, because Instagram is on fire today. So I don't want to just neglect anybody. Let's see here. Okay, cool. Now, that's that issue that we just discussed about whether or not your full-time job takes away from your creative side hustle. If you see them as compatible, as you say, you know what? Basically like Gerald said, I'm a full-time this, but I'm also a full-time musician. I'm a full-time this, but I'm also a full-time this. And both of them get my focus. Now one helps the other. This is absolutely true in my own creative life. I can tell you, honestly, I would not have a full-time position as a podcast producer and a worship band director if I didn't have a side hustle, which gave me the skills that then I was able to use in my full-time position, and vice versa. The skills that I'm learning and the leadership I'm having to exert and discuss and figure out in my full-time position are being utilized in my creative side hustles, which have nothing necessarily specifically to do with my full-time job. They are compatible. Now you might say, wait, well, I'm a firefighter. I'm doing such, and this doesn't have anything to do with my creative life. I beg to differ. I guarantee you, if you really think about it, your skills in one area are applicable. Now, maybe not specifically, obviously, you're not doing the same job, but the mindset, the discipline, the ability for you to focus, the ability for you to solve problems, whatever that job is, 100% can apply to your creative life, because it's not just your creativity that's being exercised when you're creating. It is your left brain. It is your logic. There are other things inside your brain that are being exercised when you are in those other fields. And so it's super important that you realize the value of your full-time position to your creative life and vice versa. It is not compatible. It's not competitive. It's compatible. All right. And so let's divorce. Let's get rid of, I'm just thinking about the verses is why I thought of divorce. The verses thing, right? It's not, V versus V. They're compatible. This should be full-time, and God is Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. He's separate, but he's equal. Those are three distinct personalities, but none. He's not less Son than he is Father, and he's not less Son than he is Holy Spirit. So these are all things that you need to keep in your mind, that these are compatible lifestyles that we're talking about, and it's setting it up. So now let's talk about the time issue, because that's where I started this. And I know it's a struggle with the time. So what do you do with your own? I would love to hear your suggestions in the comments as well. Even if you're watching on replay. If you're watching on replay, go ahead and tap replay. What are your strategies for keeping your creative life part of your full-time position and your full-time job and your full-time schedule? What are you doing if you are doing something that's even if it's a non-traditional job, but it's still basically taking you a different path than your creative passion? I would love to hear some of your comments, because I have my strategies, but maybe your strategies work better, or maybe there's something I haven't tried. So I'll give you some of these strategies right now in terms of time management, and just how do you keep your creative passion fueled at the same time that you're also doing your 9 to 5. Well, one of these is making it a natural part of your day. And when I say a natural part of my day, I'm saying that it should not be where it feels like there's this sudden break and I have to make myself do something different. If it is a natural part of my day to obviously go to my job, but it's also a natural part of my day to transition to doing something creative, then it no longer feels like this combative kind of, oh my gosh, I didn't have time for this. I had to force myself. Oh, I had to carve this out. And it becomes kind of like it does with exercise and a lot of other issues, where we have time issues and we feel like we're trying to do it by willpower. If you make the creative part of your day a natural part, which just kind of flows with it, you no longer feel that tension. So one way I do this is, one thing I love to do is just kind of noodle at the piano a little bit. And usually, it's funny, it usually happens right around when I'm supposed to be doing something else. I'm supposed to be washing the dishes. My wife knows she knows this 100%. And she always probably thinks, like, why is he procrastinating? But it's also a natural part of my day when it's time to do dishes, before I do dishes. And if I'm kind of like, I don't want to do this right now. Like, one of my natural things is to kind of slide to the piano and just play through the last 3 or 4 songs I played or listened to, and do some improv, and just kind of exercise that part of my brain, and work through some things and see if I can play the last song I played or whatever. So kind of, not even formal, not practice, just I want to sit at the piano for 10 minutes, 15 minutes. But it's natural. It's not, oh my God, I got to practice. Oh man, I didn't work on that thing. Oh gosh, I got to do the rest of it. The pressure is off. So my advice to you is, where can you find a natural part of your day where creativity and your creative passion fit without you having to do a lot of pressure work and a lot of scheduling? Where is it that you can say, hey, you know what? I can just do this. And it's just fun to do. I can just pull out my notepad and just write a few notes while I'm waiting for this particular person to send me this email. I can, work on this song. I can do some warm-ups in the car. One of the things that I really found myself kind of being challenged by is my commute to work, which is kind of, not the shortest commute for me. But I'm realizing I've been gifted with traffic an hour to work on something totally creative in the car when there's no distractions. I could turn off the radio, I could turn off these other things, and I can just literally let my mind just marinate on that thing that I want to work on, or those things or those ideas. Or maybe if I'm sitting in traffic, sit still, pull out a notebook real quick and write something. Or even better, do a voice note on some song ideas. So it's a natural part of my day because it's already part of my day. Like I'm already on the expressway, I'm already in traffic. So why not make that part of my creative passion part of my day? Now, if it's something you can't get to, once again, it can't be maybe painting, but is there a way that you can make getting up and just getting to your studio a natural part of your day? That's is not a push, shove. Oh my gosh, I'm missing out on time. I have to like willpower myself to make time for this. Because if so, you're going to be much more comfortable with that full-time job, creative side hustle, working on both of them in concert, not feeling like there's stress between the two. If that's helpful to anyone, please let me know either in the chat or in sharing, even telling that on the comments as well. If you're watching on replay, I know everybody can't join us at 1 o'clock. It's a perfect example, by the way, of the whole issue, because those of you who are working full time probably couldn't join us at 1 o'clock on a Friday because you're at work. But those of you who are watching live, you might have a more flexible schedule or different, and you're able to watch live. And so this is a perfect example where if you're watching on replay, I'm probably talking about you because you had to watch this later, right? But still comment, even if you're watching on replay. Let me know what you think about that particular point. So let me go ahead to the next one. And now, if you are making it a part of your day, guess what? Yeah, you are going to have to implement some systems. And when I say systems, this is something I'm working on, but you're watching me do it literally right now. One of my systems is, once I realize that my creative portion of the day is, okay, at 1 o'clock on Fridays, I'm not in the office. I need to have some type of system that allows me to be more consistent with doing these creative checkup lives. This is part of my creative side hustle. God and Gigs is not specifically the only full-time income I have, or it's not the only side hustle I have. It's not the only creative passion I have. So it's got to be a system in place so I can get this done. So guess what? I implemented some systems so that this part of my creative life is consistent and flows. That's why you can pretty much count on me being here every Friday, except if I'm out of town or there's a family situation where I want to make sure I focus on them. I have a system now. StreamYard, the very system I'm using right now, the very thing that's allowing me to do this is a system that allows me to go in and schedule at 10 o'clock last night or 10 o'clock in the morning. I have a system where I go ahead and pick the topic. I look at what people are interested in. I ask you guys sometimes on the chat, what are you interested in? And I have the system. I have everything set up already. Cameras already set up. I know where this is going to be. I was able to kind of get this going in about, I was running late today, but I was able to get this going in about 30 minutes because the system is already there. The slides are already there. The creative space, which in our consistent creative challenge, we call this enhancing your environment. My environment is optimized for me to get my creative stuff done when I have the time to do my creative stuff. So my question to you is this: have you optimized your environment? Have you elevated your environment so that when you are off of your creative, your full-time job, got mixed up there, are you able to make the switch because your environment is set up for it? Are your time systems in place, and are your physical systems, the things you use, the things you set up, the things your studio area, all that stuff? Have you implemented the system so it's so easy for you to simply flip the switch, turn your brain off of your full-time job, and move your focus to the other one? Because if not, it's going to continue to be a struggle, and you'll continue to feel this kind of pressure between the two. Okay? So I really, really suggest you find systems. Now, how do you figure out these systems? Well, one, obviously, I would suggest that you join our Facebook group if you're not already in there, that you talk to people that already do this and ask them, what system do you use? I just gave you some of mine. I said my time blocking. I've had systems, obviously, when it comes, well, I shouldn't say obviously, but it's obvious to me because I use them all the time. But my systems where I make sure that I know when I'm going to be working on my podcast. When does that happen? When do my VAs need to have certain things from my VAs? That's a system I didn't have before. I had to develop a system. First, I had to hire a VA, and then I had to figure out, how do I pay the VA? And then I had to see, what does the VA need? Those were all systems I had to develop. It's simply a method or a process of getting something from A to B is your system. Okay. Not something that's like super complicated. So, first, my question to you is, do you have a system? Yes or no? Two, B part of that question is, are you consistent with your system? Because a system that is not consistent is not really working as a system. It's just a suggestion. But you've got to get more consistent with your system. By the way, Barbara Pace and Wendell Lima Piano, thank you for joining us over here on Instagram. If you're still there, please give us a wave and let us know. Okay, and my wife is back from her appointment, so you're probably going to hear a door open, but hopefully she knows I'm recording. So now we've gotten to all these things. Oh, wow, 142, so we're almost out of time. So let me get with this final part that I was just going to talk about. And the 4 points, I want to kind of review these. That each one of your sections of your life, full-time job, creative side hustle, deserve your focus. Remember that they should be compatible, not competitive. Okay, remember that you can make the creative and your full-time job a natural part of your day so that there isn't this kind of artificial anger and artificial frustration when you don't have time for certain things. But then after you make it a natural part of your day, implement the systems that then make it easy for you to be consistent with the creative side hustle, with your practice, with your writing, with your singing, with your creative producing, with the graphic design. Those things require focus. So you have to create implement systems that will help you stay focused. And once again, I recommend that you are in a community that helps you stay focused. People like LaShonda Brown, for me, have been such a help with keeping me focused and learning new systems. People in her circle, in the Bootstrap Biz Advice, which, by the way, she's getting ready to release a new app. If you haven't followed Bootstrap Biz Advice with a Z, okay? Highly recommend it. She's helped our, and I think our next creative checkup, is that next week? Oh my gosh, what's today, guys? Oh, shoot. Is today the 20th? Today's the 19th. Oh my gosh. So I'll make this announcement very cool, but next week is going to be a super cool. It's not going to be technically on my channel. It's going to be a creative checkup episode, but it's not going to be the same as this. It's going to be something totally different, which is super cool. And it will be involving LaShonda. I'm glad I remembered that, or else I would have forgotten. You guys would have been like, where is he? I'm going to be over on her channel, and we'll talk about that in a second. I'll pull it up in a moment, okay? But that is the key to being able to balance your full-time job and your creative passion. The systems might inquire, again, time, getting up earlier, getting up late, or staying up a little later, finding time in between, going to lunch and then spending time on lunch, making sure you have your separate email address so that you can get your creative email stuff done and send those people back their stuff on a separate email. So you might have to set that up. So you have your business in place in your creative side hustle so that it operates as a business and you're not trying to do two things at once all the time where all the things are coming to the same email address. You need to set it up like a business so you can stay consistent. And then that creative side hustle has the opportunity to be the thing that you want it to be versus being a distraction one from the other. This is something I've learned, y'all, over 25 years of doing this. It's not something I learned overnight. 25 years at least of trying to work out these two things between ministry, between artistry, and between being an entrepreneur. And I've had to figure them out, and they are working for me because I'm able to balance a lot of things that I'm doing currently, a lot of properties, a lot of different, 4 different podcasts, and I'd say like 9 or 10 Facebook pages and brands and mini brands. And I'm not saying that to say, ooh, we're so busy. I'm saying that it's a blessing because I've been able to figure that out. Wait 1 second. You guys are going to see me go off camera for a second because I'm going to have to close the door. Forgive me. Here we go. Wait, 1, 2, 3. And we're back because someone downstairs is on the phone. I'm not going to talk about you, Leah. I love you. All right. So let's see over here on the comments and see if we have anyone else that wants to share. Let me jump in here. Oh, okay. It's funny because I'm seeing the delay, so I see me leave and I see you come back. That wasn't too bad. Okay. All right, my friends. Well, let me give you some of those things that I just mentioned, some of those resources that I just mentioned. And I just mentioned LaShonda. I do not have... Do I have a screenshot of this yet? We don't have a screenshot yet, but I'll just tell you, okay? So next week, This will be July 26th. You'll want to go to Bootstrap Biz Advice instead of this channel. Okay? We're going to be doing a live stream with her. You know what? Maybe she's usually pretty quick. Why do I have the feeling I might have a what you call from her? Let's see. Yeah, no, I do not have it yet. I don't have a thumbnail yet, but I know most likely she's going to have a thumbnail like really soon. So we are going to be going live with LaShonda talking about how to build your podcast on YouTube. Now, you might say to yourself, okay, I don't have a podcast or I don't have a YouTube channel. Why should I check in? These things are not just for those who are doing podcasts or those who are doing YouTube. When I tell you every single time, I just attended a podcast conference yesterday, a virtual conference, where Alex Sanfilippo of Podmatch, an amazing entrepreneur, amazing guy, just an amazing believer. He's just absolutely an epitome of how to do this again, this full-time job, creating a full-time hustle, making it his full-time job, and serving others, because he was also in a full-time position before he switched to doing podcasting full-time. But let me tell you why this is a great example, because I attended that conference as a podcaster, but the information that was shared, I immediately applied to my music career and this event that I'm promoting in music. I didn't apply it to my podcast. It was talking about sponsorship. Well, guess what? I'm looking for sponsors in. Not necessarily for the podcast. I am looking for sponsorship for a concert event. And so I immediately applied the information I learned from the podcasting conference to getting a sponsor for my music event. And guess what? Before the day was over, we lined up a sponsor for the music event from information I got from a podcasting conference. This is what I'm trying to explain to you. Do not divide between the information you get for one thing from the other. They bless each other. They help each other. They're compatible, not competitive. So if you do that, you're going to see. So that's why no matter what your field is, next week, join me at Bootstrap Biz Advice on the 26th at 1 p.m., same time as this creative checkup, and learn about how we're currently growing 2 podcasts through YouTube. And I am not, that's not the only place we're building, but it's one of the places we're building. And the lessons you'll learn are going to help you in every area of your creative career and your creative platforms, not just if you're a podcaster, not just if you're a YouTuber. These lessons are something that you can apply to anything you're trying to grow and build and get more people to follow you and to understand what you're called to do and to connect with you. That's what there's going to be next week on Monday, at 1 o'clock on Friday. All right. Let me just remind you once again that if you would like to be one of these amazing people in God and Gigs 360 Gold, 360, as I realize sometimes I don't explain it. The reason we call it 360 is because it covers all areas of the creative life. Your financial, your spiritual, your entrepreneurial. It covers everything in terms of your creative life. We don't leave anything out. We don't only talk about business. We don't only talk about God and faith and maintaining your spiritual life. We don't only talk about marketing. We don't only talk about any of these things. Yesterday, I was able to do a coaching call for someone who needed help with their email list, trying to build up their email list. One of our members, they got a discount on coaching because they're a member of 360 Gold, and they got my full attention. And we just walked through how do you build an email list for your entrepreneurial goals. That's what we do in God and Gigs 360. We don't leave anything out. Here, I can only address one thing at a time. In God and Gigs 360, I can address everything that I've learned over 25 years of creative life and ministry life. So that's why we call it 360, and gold is because those are people who are at the top of echelon. They're investing in themselves. They're putting their gold and their money where their mouth is, and they're investing in themselves. And it's a low, actually not high investment at all. And they are actually gaining. And so our newest members, as I mentioned, Victory Lyric, welcome. She is now one of our established creative experts. Also, I see Via there. Via has worked with us for years as our VA. She is now also a member, which is super cool. And then our other members, Janine, Yoshika, Pamela, Deb Brown, Renata, LaShonda, as I just mentioned, Samantha, Sam Mabry, our financial expert. She's amazing. Precious is still there. Sandra, our coach, she is the amazing coach, another ECE who is helping people with learning how to stop procrastinating and getting themselves in their 90-day goals. Simony, our ambassador. Hey, Simony, she is amazing, and she's just come back from an amazing trip, and now she hopefully will be able to hop in soon. And of course, Leah Paul, who just happens to be the beautiful wife that I get to call mine for the last 27 years, and she's put up with me for 27 years. And then all the guests I mentioned. Again, if you buy something from God and Gigs 360, you still get to be in the membership, but you just don't get the live coaching. And so all those members there are people who are still have access to the forums, they have access to each other, the prayer chat. All of this can be found. If you want to join free and just see what it's like, then you can go to, let me find it, God and Gigs 360 guest, godandgigs.com/360 guest. You can join for free. You can become one of those guests, and you can simply see what's happening in the forums, what classes we allow or we share, what workshops we do. All of that stuff is there, and you can join for free at godandgigs.com/360 guest. Of course, you don't get a chance to be able part of the live coaching. That's what 360 Gold is for, and I would highly recommend that you jump into that one. To do that, you just go to godandgigs.com/gold, okay, which I believe I have over here somewhere. There it is. Okay. I always do these little check. Hold on, let me do this. This will be easier because I'm trying to share 2 screens and trying to get there. All right, there we go. Cool. Thank you, those of you who are hanging in for this part. I know sometimes it might feel like this gets to the church announcements. I still see some watchers here, so thank you for hanging out. If you have any questions, by the way, I should have said that, about balancing your creative life with your full-time position, please, we're still here. I'm here to answer questions. I'm here to help you out. Again, I've been doing this pretty much my whole life as an adult. So this is where you can get that help right away if you're watching. And if you're watching on replay and you didn't get a chance to answer these questions or ask these questions, go ahead and share it in the chat. I'll come back and I will answer them in the chat as well. If you are interested in a little bit of merch, just over this weekend, I noticed this. I didn't really talk about this a lot, but we have some merch available. Doing that. I keep removing myself and removing the audio. Okay. So we also have some merch available if you would like to check out our sweatshirts, or I'm using a mug right now for my other podcast, but we do have mugs. We do have some sweatshirts, some cool stuff I usually wear. So you can check that out at godandgigs.com/merch. And for the next 5 days, you can get free shipping, which is awesome. It's basically like cuts off the price, like whatever. Like, if you want to get standard shipping and cuts like $5 off or $6 off, why not save the money? So go check that out. That is available at godandgigs.com/merch. We'd love to see you guys rocking some gear. That would be really cool. And I think you would love to also represent what you believe on your gigs and as you go out. And let me just mention as well, godandgigs.com/info. That's where you sign up for our newsletter, and that goes out every Wednesday. So this is basically what you see. Podcast on Monday, newsletter on Wednesday, creative checkup on Friday. That's our schedule. It's pretty easy to follow. Anytime you need to see what's God and Gigs doing. Monday, podcast. Wednesday, newsletter. Friday, live stream. Okay, I'm simplifying. That's my system because I needed help kind of keeping this straight. So that's the system. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday is just stuff that happens and, whatever, conversations inside the Facebook group and so on. So that's the easy way to remember where to find us, to find those resources that you need. Okay, my friends, we're right at 154, so I'm going to get ready to start landing this plane. Once again, remember, next week, if you're watching, we will not be on this channel. We'll be over there with LaShonda on Bootstrap Biz Advice. You can also find her at LaShonda M. Brown. And we're going to be talking about podcasting and YouTube. So no creative checkup technically on this channel next week. It will be on LaShonda's channel. You'll see me, you'll see her. She'll be talking about her new app. She'll be talking about everything that she's sharing in her own building of YouTube, which she's now to 30,000 subscribers. She's a creator herself. She doesn't talk about it a lot, get a chance to talk about it a lot. She's got a theater background. It's like we can't help ourselves. Like the creatives in us, like it's always there. It just gets expressed in different ways. And so that's why I had to kind of stop talking about just musicians, because we don't just do just music. We do all these other things, and they're just part of what we do. And you realize that, me trying to put myself on a label is silly, foolish, doesn't work. All right. Let me quickly say hi to everybody that was able to join us. Wendell, Barbara, Gerald, you were such a blessing, man. Thank you so much for joining me today. Manuel, you was able to drop in. Imperial, Logan was able to drop in. My mom, Rita Paul, dropped in. Thank you, Mom. I don't know if you were able to hang in the entire time, but or maybe you were watching and you weren't commenting. Thank you, Mom. Love you. Humble, MJ, Ari Made New was here. CC Keys joined us. Black Keys Music. Zakia Media House joined us. So once again, I know some of you had to jump in and jump out. That's totally understandable. You can't be here for an entire hour, especially on Instagram, where you're probably doing a million different things. Whenever you watched, whenever you joined us, same thing on the Facebook and the YouTube thing. If you're watching on replay, thank you for giving us time. I appreciate it. We love it. We appreciate it. Share this with other people because this is evergreen. This is designed for you to see and watch and get solutions whenever you watch it, not just live. And I'm not just concerned about live viewers. I do this because I needed someone to help me years ago. I was struggling with how to figure out how to balance this out. The whole reason why I jumped out of full-time teaching and jumped into full-time ministry was because I felt this tension. I didn't know how to handle it. Now, after 20 years, I've learned how I can handle it and balance these two things together where none of these things, I hope, suffer. My ministry hopefully doesn't suffer because of my creative life. My creative life doesn't suffer because of my ministry. My entrepreneurial life does not suffer because of either one of those. Those are all equal. They equally get my focus and they're equally important. So I hope that if that is you, if you also struggled with balancing creative, ministry, entrepreneurial, all the things in your life, and then don't forget family, right? So all these things in your life, they should be compatible, not competitive. That's probably my final word to remind you of that, okay? But I hope this has been a blessing. Please share this if this was. It's because someone else probably needs to hear it, probably even more than you. And you hitting that share button will just send this on. And I mentioned this in my last point. I mentioned this. There's some outage or some huge tech issue that happened, some data thing that knocked out a bunch of computers because one particular code was wrong, faulty, and got uploaded and it crashed millions of computers around the world. Well, just imagine if you make, instead of one mistake, you make that one effort to share this podcast, to share this creative checkup. What could one action do to ripple across the world? You have no idea what that person was that accidentally hit the wrong button, but it impacted the entire earth into a lot of computer systems and caused a lot of mayhem. Turn that around a positive. What could one click of you sending do to the entire world? What could that ripple effect be? You won't know if you don't first take the action to share it. All right, God bless you guys. Thank you so much for being a part of the Creative Checkup. God Engaged. My name is Alan C. Paul. It's been an honor serving and talking with you today. God bless. And I'll see you next week, not on this channel. I'll see you over on Bootstrap Biz Advice. God bless. See you next time.